Before you dive into this incredible tale of unexpected love and life-changing decisions, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and let us know in the comments if you believe in destiny. Your support helps us bring more amazing stories to life. The Billionaire's blind date. Mark, a billionaire, found himself dragged to a blind date by his friends, never imagining that this woman would be the one. "Excuse me, are you Sarah?" Mark asked with a nervous smile, rising from his seat as he saw the blonde waitress approach. Sophia froze, tray in hand, looking at the elegant man, observing her with expectation. The Azure Sky restaurant was at its busiest, and she had already been running from table to table for 6 hours. "I'm sorry," she replied, confused, immediately noticing his perfectly tailored suit and the watch that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. "Sarah, right? My friends told me you were blonde and, well, here you are." Mark extended his hand with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'm Mark Anderson." For a moment, Sophia considered correcting him, but something in his expression stopped her. There was a hidden vulnerability behind that magazine-perfect smile, a loneliness she recognized all too well. She began, but the desperation in his eyes made her change her mind. "Yes, I'm Sarah." 3 hours earlier, Mark had been in his 23rd-floor office in the most modern building in downtown Metropolis, looking out at the city lights. At 32, he had built Innovate Tech from scratch, turning it into one of the country's most successful mobile app companies. But success came with a price: loneliness. His last 3 relationships had ended the same way. First came the fascination with his lifestyle, then the hints about expensive gifts, and finally, disappointment when they realized he wasn't just a credit card with legs. "Mark, brother, you need to get out of this office," Liam had said, bursting into his space with David, his friends since college. "You have a date tonight." "A what?" Mark had looked up from his laptop. "No thanks, you know how they always end." "This time it's different," David insisted, already putting Mark's documents into his briefcase. "Sarah is different, a grad student, independent, knows nothing about your money." And so, despite his protests, Mark found himself at the most exclusive restaurant in the area, waiting for a stranger. Meanwhile, in a modest apartment in the East Side district, Sophia had been preparing for another night shift. At 28, she had her architecture degree hanging on the wall as a reminder of what her life had been before everything changed. "Honey, you don't have to do this," her mother, Eleanor, had said from her bed, her voice weak but full of guilt. "I can look for a job, even part-time." "Mom, don't be silly." Sophia had adjusted the pillow behind her mother. "The doctor said you need complete rest, and besides, it's just temporary." But they both knew it wasn't true. The chemotherapy treatments had drained all their savings, and medical debts grew every month. The architecture studio job was the first thing she had to sacrifice when Eleanor worsened. Now, standing in front of this man, who clearly belonged to a completely different world than hers, Sophia felt strangely calm for the first time in months. "Can I get you something to drink?" she asked, letting the lie continue. "Well, I suppose. A glass of wine?" Mark looked genuinely confused. "Sorry, I thought we were having dinner together, not that you were going to serve me." Sophia felt the heat rush to her cheeks. Of course, he expected his date to be a customer, not the waitress. "Excuse me, it's just that..." She began to back away, but Mark stopped her with a gesture. "Wait, don't go. Obviously there's a confusion here, but..." He ran a hand through his hair. "Honestly, you're not what I expected, but in a good way." "What did you expect?" Sophia asked, despite herself. "Someone who would ask about my car in the first 5 minutes," Mark replied, with a genuine smile for the first time. "Someone who had already calculated how much my watch costs." Sophia glanced towards the kitchen, where the chef was starting to cast impatient glances in her direction. Her boss, Mr. Thompson, had already scolded her twice for socializing with customers. "Look, I think we should clear this up," she said. But Mark interrupted her. "5 minutes," he said. "Give me 5 minutes of your time, and then I'll leave you alone. But please don't leave me alone with this bottle of wine and my own company. It's been a very long day." There was something in his voice that made Sophia sit down. Maybe it was the honesty. Or maybe it was that it had been months since she'd had a conversation that wasn't about medication, medical bills, or work schedules. 5 minutes, she agreed. Those 5 minutes turned into 10, then 30, then 2 hours. Mark told her about his company, but not in a boastful way, rather like someone who genuinely wanted to do good in the world. Sophia found herself talking about architecture, about her dreams of designing affordable housing for families who couldn't afford a decent home. "That's incredible," Mark said, leaning forward. "That vision of social architecture is exactly what this country needs." For the first time in months, Sophia felt like someone saw her as the professional she was, not as the waitress she had been forced to be. It was then that Mr. Thompson appeared behind her. "Miller, what on earth do you think you're doing?" His voice cut through the conversation like a knife. "You've neglected 5 tables by chatting here." Sophia's stomach sank. She looked around and saw the annoyed faces of the customers, the empty glasses, the dirty plates, uncollected. "Mr. Thompson, I can explain." "There's nothing to explain. Pack your things." "You're fired." The silence that followed was deafening. Mark immediately stood up, his face red with embarrassment. "Wait, this is my fault," he began. But Mr. Thompson ignored him. "Come on, Miller, move it." Sophia slowly got up, feeling her whole world crumble. Without this job, how was she going to pay for her mother's medication? The treatments? Wait. Mark gently took her arm. "You're not Sarah, are you?" Sophia looked him in the eyes, and all the magic of the last 2 hours vanished. He was a millionaire, waiting for his perfect date, and she was just a waitress who had just lost her job. "No," she whispered. "I'm not Sarah. I'm just Sophia." Mark watched her walk away towards the changing room, heartbroken in a way he hadn't experienced in years. Not because of the deception, but because he had lost the most real connection he had felt with someone in a long time, and it had all been his fault. Mark hadn't been able to sleep all night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Sophia's expression when the manager fired her. Guilt was killing him. At 7 in the morning, he was already in the parking lot of the Azure Sky restaurant, waiting for a staff member to arrive. When an employee finally appeared, Mark approached with determination. "Excuse me, I need the address of Sophia Miller, the waitress who was fired last night." The woman looked at him suspiciously. "I can't give out personal employee information, sir." Mark took out his wallet and left several bills on the hood of his car. "It's important. I need to fix what happened last night." An hour later, Mark was standing in front of an apartment building in the East Side district, with a bouquet of flowers in one hand and a job proposal in the other. He climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor and knocked on the door. Sophia opened it in her pajamas, hair disheveled and eyes swollen. She had clearly been crying. "What are you doing here?" she asked, trying to close the door. "Wait, please." Mark put his foot in the door. "I've come to offer you a job." "A job?" Sophia looked at him in disbelief. "Do you feel guilty about last night?" "Yes, I feel guilty. But this isn't charity." Mark took a folder from his briefcase. "I'm the CEO of Innovate Tech, and we're considering a social housing project. We need an architect. And after listening to you last night, I think you're perfect for the position." Sophia crossed her arms. "Really? And you just happened to discover you needed an architect right after I was fired because of you? Look at these plans." Mark extended the documents. "We've been trying to develop this project for months, but all the architects we've consulted give us generic proposals. We need someone who truly understands the needs of low-income families." Despite herself, Sophia took the plans. Her eyes lit up as she saw the project. It was exactly the kind of development she had dreamed of creating. Decent, functional, and accessible homes. "Honey, who is it?" Eleanor called from inside the apartment. "It's..." Sophia hesitated. "It's Mark, Mom. The man I told you about. The millionaire. Tell him to come in. I want to meet him." Sophia sighed and opened the door completely. Mark entered the small apartment. He immediately felt at home. It was simple, but cozy, full of family photos and plants. Eleanor was on the sofa, with a blanket over her legs. Despite the chemotherapy, her smile was radiant. "So you're the famous Mark," she said, extending her hand. "Sit down, honey." "Sophia, serve him some coffee." "Mom, it's not necessary." "Of course it's necessary. This young man came all the way here to offer you a job. The least we can do is treat him with politeness." Mark sat next to Eleanor, feeling more comfortable than he had expected. "Mrs. Eleanor, your daughter is very talented. Last night she told me about her ideas on social architecture, and I was impressed. See?" Eleanor nudged Sophia. "I told you someone would recognize your talent sooner or later." Sophia sat on the armchair opposite, still skeptical. "How much would you pay for this project?" Mark mentioned a figure that made Sophia choke on her coffee. "That's more than I earned at the restaurant in 6 months." "Because this is professional work," Mark replied. "I'm not doing you a favor, Sophia. I'm hiring you because I need you." Eleanor watched the interaction with interest. There was something in the way this man looked at her daughter, something that went beyond the professional. "And how long would the project be?" Sophia asked. 6 months initially, but if it works, we could expand it. Sophia looked at the plans again. It was the opportunity she had been waiting for years. "All right," she finally said. "I accept." In the following days, Sophia immersed herself in the project with a passion she had forgotten she had. Innovate Tech's office was impressive, but Mark made sure she had her own space on the architecture floor. "Do you like it?" Mark asked, showing her new office with a city view. "It's perfect," Sophia replied, touching the new desk. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. It's your workspace, not a gift." As the weeks passed, Mark and Sophia developed a routine. They worked together in the mornings, reviewing plans and discussing ideas. Mark was constantly impressed by the creativity and practicality of Sophia's proposals. "How did you think of including community spaces in each complex?" Mark asked one day, studying the new plans. "Because houses aren't just structures," Sophia explained. "They're the center of communities. If you design spaces where families can interact, you create stronger neighborhoods." "It's brilliant. I never would have thought of it from that perspective." One afternoon, Sophia received a call from Eleanor. Her doctor's appointment had been moved up, and she had no way to get to the hospital. "Do you need to leave?" Mark asked, noticing her concern. "My mom has chemotherapy, but I don't have a car and..." "I'll take you," Mark said without thinking. "Let's go." "No, you can't. You have a meeting with investors in an hour." "The meeting can wait. Your mom can't." At the hospital, Mark waited in the waiting room, while Sophia accompanied Eleanor to the treatment. When they came out, Eleanor looked exhausted, but insisted on getting to know Mark better. "Do you want something to eat, honey?" she asked Mark. "I know a place nearby that makes the best quesadillas in the city." Mark, who normally ate at 5-star restaurants, found himself in a small local eatery, eating squash blossom quesadillas and laughing with Eleanor as she told him stories from Sophia's childhood. "She was very stubborn as a child," Eleanor said. "When she was 8, she decided she was going to build a treehouse in the backyard without anyone's help." "Did she succeed?" Mark asked, genuinely interested. The house fell down 3 times, Eleanor laughed. But she kept trying until it was perfect. She's always been like that. When she sets her mind to something, she doesn't give up. Sophia watched them from the table, surprised at how natural Mark looked in this environment. There was no trace of the discomfort she expected to see in a millionaire eating in a neighborhood joint. "You know what?" Eleanor told Mark as they said goodbye. "I like you. You should come for dinner on Sunday. Sophia makes the best mole in the neighborhood." "Mom," Sophia protested. "I'd love to," Mark accepted before Sophia could object. That night, as Mark drove back to his apartment in the Heights, he couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in years, he had felt part of a real family. There were no pretensions, no hidden agendas, just genuine warmth. In her East Side apartment, Sophia helped Eleanor get into bed. "I like that young man," Eleanor said. "He has a good heart." "Mom, he's my boss. It's nothing more than that." "Oh, my daughter, I'm not blind. I saw how he looked at you, and I also saw how you looked at him." Sophia remained silent because she knew her mother was right. Something was growing between her and Mark, something that went far beyond the professional. But she also knew they belonged to completely different worlds. "It's complicated, Mom. Love is always complicated, my daughter. But that doesn't mean it's not worth trying." That night, both Mark and Sophia fell asleep thinking of each other, unaware that their story was just beginning. Sunday arrived faster than Sophia had expected. She spent the entire morning cooking the mole, checking every detail 3 times. Eleanor watched her from the kitchen table, amused by her daughter's nerves. "My daughter, it's just dinner, not a job interview." "I know, Mom. I just want everything to be perfect." "For your boss?" Eleanor smiled mischievously. Sophia ignored her, but her red cheeks betrayed her. When the doorbell rang at 2 o'clock, Sophia wiped her hands on her apron and went to open it. Mark was standing at the door with a bottle of wine and a bouquet of flowers for Eleanor. He looked different. Dark jeans, a white shirt without a tie, more relaxed than ever. "It smells incredible," he said, inhaling the aroma coming from the kitchen. "Wait until you taste it," Sophia replied, feeling butterflies in her stomach. The dinner was perfect. Mark praised every dish. He made Eleanor laugh with his business travel stories and helped wash the dishes without being asked. When Eleanor went to rest early, Mark and Sophia were left alone in the small living room. "Your mom is amazing," Mark said, settling onto the sofa. "Now I understand where you get your strength." "She's been my example my whole life," Sophia replied, sitting next to him. "When Dad abandoned us, she raised our family by working double shifts as a nurse." "How old were you?" 12. Overnight, I had to grow up very fast." Mark studied her in silence. He was beginning to understand why Sophia was so independent, so reluctant to accept help. "That's why you didn't want to accept the job at first. I've learned that when something seems too good to be true, it usually is." "And now? What do you think now?" Sophia looked him directly in the eyes. "Now I think maybe I was wrong about you." In the following days at the office, the tension between them was palpable. They worked closer. Their glances lasted longer, and any excuse was good for their hands to brush when passing documents. One night, working late on the project, Mark ordered Chinese food for the two of them. The office was empty, lit only by desk lamps and the city lights. "Do you know what I like most about this project?" Sophia asked, studying the plans spread out on the table. "What?" "That it's not just about building houses, it's about building dreams. Every family that lives here will have the opportunity for something better." Mark stopped eating and watched her. Sophia's eyes were bright, speaking with a passion that completely captivated him. "Do you know what I like most?" he said. "What?" "Seeing you like this, passionate. When you talk about architecture, you light up completely." Sophia felt the air grow thicker between them. "Sophia, come with me to the rooftop," he suddenly said. "I want to show you something." They went up to the top floor of the building. The rooftop had a spectacular view of the entire city. The lights stretched to the horizon like a blanket of stars. "It's beautiful," Sophia sighed. Yes, it is, Mark replied. But he wasn't looking at the city. He was looking at her. Sophia turned and found him standing very close. She could feel his breath, see the golden freckles in his brown eyes. Sophia, don't say anything, she whispered. Please. Mark raised his hand and caressed her cheek. Sophia closed her eyes and leaned into his touch. I never thought I could feel this, Mark murmured. Me neither, she replied, opening her eyes. When they kissed, it was as if the whole world stopped. Soft at first, then more intense, as if they had been waiting for this moment their whole lives. They slowly separated, breathing heavily. What do we do now? Sophia asked. I don't know, Mark admitted. I just know I don't want this to end. The following days were like living in a bubble. They worked together during the day, maintaining professional appearances. But after hours, they stayed alone, talking late into the night, kissing on the rooftop, discovering everything they had in common. Everything changed one Friday afternoon, when Sophia was alone in her office and received an unexpected visit. Sophia Miller? An elegant woman with perfect black hair and designer clothes entered without knocking. Yes, that's me. How can I help you? I'm Victoria Hayes. Well, soon to be Anderson again. The woman smiled superiorly. I'm Mark's fiancée. Sophia felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. Fiancé? I just got back from Europe. Mark and I have been engaged for 2 years, but we decided to take some time for me to finish my master's in Paris. Victoria sat down uninvited. I guess he didn't mention it to you. No, he didn't mention it, Sophia replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Well, men sometimes forget to mention these details when they hire attractive employees. Victoria looked her up and down. But don't worry, dear. I understand Mark can be very charming. I just wanted to clarify things before there were any misunderstandings. When Victoria left, Sophia sat at her desk trembling. Was it possible that Mark was engaged? That everything that had happened between them was just a game for him? That same afternoon, while Sophia struggled with her doubts, Mark received his own unexpected visit at Eleanor's house. He had gone to bring her some medication that Eleanor had forgotten after her doctor's appointment. Mark? A young, attractive man in mechanic's overalls was standing at the building's door. Yes, who's asking? I'm Robert Smith, Sophia's boyfriend. Mark felt the world tilt under his feet. Sophia's boyfriend? Well, ex-boyfriend. But I'm here to win her back. Robert smiled confidently. Sophia and I have history, you know. We were even going to have a child together. A child? It was lost in an accident 3 years ago. It was very difficult for both of us, and that's why we broke up. But I've matured, and I want to try again. I'm sure we can get back what we had. Mark went upstairs like a zombie. When Eleanor opened the door, she immediately noticed his expression. What happened, honey? You look pale. Mrs. Eleanor, does Sophia have a boyfriend? Eleanor sighed. Invited him in. Sit down, we need to talk. Eleanor told him the whole story. How Sophia and Robert had been together for 2 years, how they had gotten pregnant and planned to marry, and how everything fell apart when Sophia lost the baby in a car accident. Robert couldn't handle the pain, Eleanor explained. He disappeared when Sophia needed him most. It took her a long time to recover, to trust someone again. And now he wants to come back? Robert always shows up when things are going badly for him. But this time, it's different, Mark. This time Sophia has someone who truly values her. Mark left Eleanor's house with more questions than answers. Did Sophia still love Robert? Was everything he had felt between them real? Or was she just trying to forget her true love? That night, neither of them slept well. Sophia, tortured by Victoria's words. Mark, obsessed with the image of Sophia with Robert and the child they had lost. The next day, when they met at the office, something had changed between them. There was a different tension, full of unexpressed doubts and hidden fears. Are you okay? Mark asked, noticing Sophia's dark circles. "Yes. I'm just tired," she lied, unable to look him in the eyes. "Sophia, did something happen?" Sophia looked at him then, and Mark saw pain in her eyes. "Is there something I should know about you, Mark? Something important you forgot to mention?" Mark frowned, confused. "What are you talking about?" Before Sophia could answer, the office door opened, and Victoria entered, radiant in a red dress. "Darling," she cried, running towards Mark and kissing him on the lips before he could react. Sophia watched the scene as if in slow motion. The way Victoria hung on Mark's neck, how he froze, the ease with which she called him darling. "Excuse me," Sophia murmured, gathering her things. "I'll leave you two alone." "Sophia, wait!" Mark shouted, gently pushing Victoria away. But Sophia was already gone, leaving Mark with a terrible premonition that everything they had built together was about to collapse. Mark ran after Sophia down the hallway, completely ignoring Victoria, who was shouting his name behind him. "Sophia, wait! I can explain." Sophia stopped in front of the elevators, fists clenched, without turning around. "You don't need to explain anything, Mark. Your fiancé already clarified the situation yesterday." "My what?" Mark caught up to her and took her arm. "Victoria is not my fiancé. We broke up over a year ago. She says you've been engaged for 2 years. Sophia finally looked at him, and Mark saw tears in her eyes. "That she just went to study in Paris. That's a lie. Victoria and I dated for 6 months a long time ago. We broke up because she was only interested in my money." Mark tried to get closer, but Sophia backed away. "I swear on my mother's life there's nothing between us." The elevator doors opened, and Sophia stepped in. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Mark." That afternoon, Mark confronted Victoria in his office. "What did you tell Sophia yesterday?" Victoria was sitting in his chair, filing her nails as if nothing had happened. "Just the truth, darling, that you and I have a history that ended over a year ago. Why did you tell her we're engaged?" "Because that little girl needed to understand her place." Victoria stood up and approached him. "Mark, are you seriously going to trade me for an employee? A waitress? Sophia is an architect, and she's 1,000 times better person than you." "An architect?" Victoria laughed. "Please, Mark, she works as a waitress because she's obviously not good enough at her profession. She works as a waitress because she's paying for her mother's medical treatments, something you wouldn't understand, because you've never had to fight for anything in your life." "Exactly," Victoria smiled triumphantly. "I understand your world, Mark. I come from your same social class. What will your family think when you introduce them to a waitress from the East Side?" Mark didn't answer, because he knew Victoria was right about that. His parents had already expressed their disapproval in the past about his romantic experiments with working-class women. Meanwhile, Sophia arrived home devastated. Eleanor immediately noticed her state. "What happened, honey?" Sophia told her everything. Victoria, the kiss, the lies, the doubts. Eleanor listened in silence, hugging her as she cried. "You know what I think," Eleanor finally said. "I think that woman is jealous and is trying to separate you from Mark. But Mom, did you see how she kissed him? They clearly have history. Having history is not the same as having a future, honey." That night, Robert appeared at the apartment door with a bouquet of red roses. "Hi, Sophia. You look beautiful." Sophia sighed. It was the last thing she needed at that moment. "Robert, what are you doing here?" "I came for you. I've matured, Sophia. I'm ready to be the man you need." "Robert, that was 3 years ago. I know I hurt you when you needed me most." Robert approached, but I couldn't handle the loss of the baby. I was very young, very immature. Now I'm different. Sophia looked at Robert. He was still handsome, familiar, part of her past. For a moment, she considered that maybe it would be easier to go back to something known than to fight for something uncertain with Mark. "Robert, I need time to think." Of course, darling. I just want you to know that I never stopped loving you. The following days were hell for Mark and Sophia. They worked in the same office but barely spoke. When it was necessary to communicate about the project, they did so through cold, professional emails. Mark tried several times to approach her, but Sophia maintained a strict distance. Every time he entered a room, she found an excuse to leave. The tension reached its peak when Mark's parents unexpectedly appeared at the office one Friday afternoon. Frederick Anderson was an imposing man, owner of several construction companies. Patricia, his mother, was an elegant socialite who had never worked a day in her life. "Mark, honey, we need to talk to you," Patricia said, immediately noticing Sophia working at her desk. "Is that her?" Frederick asked quietly. "The employee Victoria told us about?" Mark felt the blood rush to his head. "Sophia is not my employee. She's the architect of the social housing project." "The waitress is an architect?" Patricia raised an eyebrow. "What? Interesting." Sophia heard the entire conversation from her desk, got up, gathered her things, and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Mark asked. "Home. Obviously, I'm in." Sophia, no. "No, Mark. It's okay. I perfectly understand the situation." After Sophia left, Mark confronted his parents. "How dare you talk to her like that?" "Honey, we're just worried about you," Patricia said. "Victoria told us you're confused. It's normal. At your age, men sometimes have these crises." "It's not a crisis. I'm in love with Sophia." "In love?" Frederick laughed. "Mark, that woman doesn't belong in our world. What will our partners think? Our friends?" "I couldn't care less what they think." "You should care," Patricia said firmly. "Your reputation affects your business. And frankly, this obsession of yours with helping the poor is going too far." Mark remained silent, feeling the weight of years of family expectations falling on him. Things worsened when a social magazine published a sensational article with photos of Mark and Sophia. The images, taken without permission, showed Sophia cleaning the office late one night, while Mark worked at his desk. The headline was cruel. "The Millionaire and His Housekeeper, Romance or Convenience?" The article speculated about the relationship, painting Sophia as a gold digger who had seduced her boss. The photos were edited to make the situation look worse than it was. When Sophia saw the article, she felt more humiliated than ever in her life. Her neighbors looked at her differently. Her former university classmates started making comments on social media. "Did you see this?" she asked Mark when she arrived at the office, throwing the magazine on his desk. Mark read the article, feeling sick. "Sophia, this is garbage. No one who knows us will believe." "Really?" Sophia laughed bitterly. "Look at the comments online. Everyone thinks exactly what it says here." "I don't care what people think." "Well, I do," Sophia burst out. "I have to live in the real world, Mark, not in your millionaire bubble where you can ignore what people say." "What do you want me to do? Issue a statement, sue the magazine?" "I want you to understand that this will never work." Sophia had tears in her eyes. "I'll always be the employee to your world. There will always be articles like this. There will always be people like your parents who see me as a threat. Sophia, we can overcome it together." "No, Mark, we can't. Because you can pretend you don't care, but I see how you get tense when your parents speak ill of me. I see how you doubt." "I don't doubt you." "Really?" Sophia looked at him directly. "Then tell me, what did you tell your parents when they left the other day?" Mark remained silent, and that pause was enough of an answer for Sophia. "Exactly. You told them you'd think about it, right? That maybe they were right, Sophia." "It's okay, Mark. I understand. I've also been thinking, and maybe Robert was right. Maybe it's time for me to go back to my world and stop dreaming about things that don't belong to me." Mark felt as if his heart had been ripped out. "Robert? Your ex-boyfriend is back?" "Yes. And he knows me, Mark. He knows my world, my history. I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not." "You're not pretending anything. You're perfect just the way you are." For you, maybe, but not for your family, not for your world, not for the magazines that will be analyzing every step I take. Sophia walked towards the door, but stopped without turning. Mark, I'm falling in love with you too. That's why it's so hard. But sometimes love isn't enough to overcome all differences. Mark was left alone in the office, feeling more lost than ever. For the first time in his life, his money and success couldn't solve the problem. In fact, they were part of the problem. That night, both Mark and Sophia went to sleep knowing that something beautiful was breaking between them, and neither knew how to fix it. 3 months had passed since the breakup, and Mark looked like a ghost of himself. His apartment in the Heights, once impeccable, was now filled with empty Chinese food boxes and dirty clothes. He hadn't shaved in days and barely left home except to go to the office. Liam and David were sitting in his living room, worried about their friend's state. "Brother, this is too much," Liam said, taking a beer from his hand. "You've been like this for 3 months. The housing project is completely stalled," David added. "Your employees don't know what to do without Sophia's instructions." Mark looked at them with empty eyes. "I hired other architects. 3 different ones. None of them understand the project's vision like her. Have you tried talking to Sophia? She changed her number. She moved. I don't know where she's working now." What Mark didn't know was that Sophia was just as destroyed as he was. She had found a job at a small architecture studio in the Valley District, designing houses for middle-class families. The work was fine, but it didn't compare to the passion she had felt designing the social housing project. "Honey, I can't see you like this anymore," Eleanor told her one afternoon. Her health had improved considerably, but now she was worried about her daughter's emotional state. "I'm fine, Mom." "Fine? You've been crying every night for 3 months. You think I don't hear you, but these walls are thin." Sophia was sitting at the kitchen table, distractedly stirring her coffee without tasting it. "There's nothing to do, Mom. Mark and I are from different worlds. It was inevitable that it would end this way." "Inevitable?" Eleanor sat opposite her. "Honey, that man truly loved you. I saw how he looked at you. Love isn't always enough." "And Robert?" Eleanor asked. "Does he make you happy?" Sophia sighed. Robert had been visiting her regularly, bringing her flowers, inviting her to dinner. He was attentive and familiar. But Robert is safe. Known. There are no complications with him. "But you don't love him like you loved Mark." Sophia didn't answer, because her mother was right. One day, Eleanor made a decision. Without telling Sophia, she showed up at Innovate Tech's offices. When the receptionist told her that Mark wasn't receiving visitors, Eleanor stood her ground in the lobby. "Tell him Eleanor Miller is here, and I'm not leaving until he sees me." When Mark heard the name, he immediately came down. Eleanor was surprised to see him. He had lost weight, had deep, dark circles under his eyes, and his clothes were wrinkled. "Mrs. Eleanor," Mark said with a sad smile, "how are you?" "Worried. About you and about my daughter." "How is Sophia?" "The same as you. Devastated, but too proud to admit it." Mark invited her to his office. Eleanor looked around and noticed the withered plants, the messy documents, the photo of Sophia that was still on his desk. "Mark, honey, I need to tell you something. Something Sophia never knew." Eleanor explained what had really happened the afternoon everything fell apart. She told him about the phone conversation Sophia had misinterpreted. "She overheard you talking to your accountant about maintaining appearances in public relations. She thought you were referring to her, that your relationship was just a marketing strategy." Mark was speechless. "What? No, that conversation was about how to handle the bad press from the article. I was planning to make a public statement defending her." "I know, honey, but Sophia didn't know. She thought you were using her." Mark ran his hands over his face. "That's why she broke up with me so abruptly. That's why she wouldn't let me explain." "My daughter is proud and stubborn," Eleanor said, "but she's also suffering. If you truly love her, don't give up." That night, Mark didn't sleep. Eleanor had given him the missing pieces of the puzzle. But how could he show Sophia that his feelings were genuine? Words would no longer be enough. The next day, Mark made a drastic decision. He canceled all his meetings and went to the site where the social housing project was supposed to be built. The land was empty, with only a few markers indicating where the first houses had been planned. Mark called the main contractor. "I want to reactivate the project, but with changes." "What kind of changes, Mr. Anderson?" "I want to donate it completely, non-profit, and I want to build exactly as Sophia designed it, without modifications." "Donate the entire project?" "Yes. Every penny I was going to earn goes directly to building more homes, and I want to start immediately." In the following days, Mark immersed himself in work like never before, but not from his office, but on the construction site. He put on overalls, a helmet, and worked side by side with the laborers. "Boss, you don't need to do this," the foreman told him. "That's what we have workers for." "I want to," Mark replied, carrying rebar. "This project means something special to me." Meanwhile, Sophia accidentally found out about the project's restart when she read a small article in the newspaper. The headline took her breath away. "Entrepreneur donates entire social housing project. It's not about making money, but about creating decent homes." The article quoted Mark. "This project was always about creating decent homes for families who need them. Financial gain was never the goal. We want to build a community where families can thrive." Sophia read and reread the article, feeling something stir in her chest. Then she investigated further and discovered something else. Mark had been discreetly paying for Eleanor's medical treatments for the past 3 months. "Mom," Sophia called from the living room. "Where did you get the money for last month's chemotherapy?" Eleanor appeared from the kitchen with a guilty look. "Honey, It was Mark, wasn't it?" Eleanor nodded slowly. "He's been paying for all my treatments since you two broke up, but he made me promise not to tell you anything." Sophia sat heavily on the sofa, feeling overwhelmed with guilt. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" "Because he asked me not to. He said he didn't want you to think he was trying to buy you with money." That afternoon, Sophia couldn't concentrate on work. She kept thinking about Mark, about the project, about everything she had misinterpreted. Finally, at 5 in the afternoon, she got in her car and drove to the construction site. When she arrived, she saw several material trucks and busy workers. She asked for Mark and was told he was in hole 3, loading cement. Sophia followed the directions and couldn't believe what she saw. Mark, dirty and sweaty, wearing a yellow helmet and work clothes, was carrying bags of cement alongside the laborers. His hands, which had only known keyboards and documents, now had calluses and dirt. She stood at a distance, watching him. There was something beautiful about seeing this man who had everything, working with his own hands to build the dream they had shared. One of the workers saw her and shouted to Mark, "Boss, you have a visitor!" Mark turned, and when he saw Sophia, he froze. He slowly took off his helmet, unable to believe she was there. "Sophia," he said, his voice cracking. The workers, realizing the tension of the moment, found excuses to move away and give them privacy. Sophia walked towards him slowly, taking in every detail. The grown beard, the dark circles, the work clothes, the rough hands. "What are you doing here, Mark?" "Building our dream," he replied simply, "with my own hands." Sophia felt tears beginning to form in her eyes. "I read the article about the project donation. It was always yours, Sophia. Your vision, your passion. I just put up the money." "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why did you go ahead without me?" Mark took a step closer. "Because I needed to show you that this was never about money or appearances for me. I needed to show you that what I felt for you was real." "Mark, Sophia broke down. "I misheard that phone conversation. I thought you were using me as a marketing strategy." "What?" Mark looked at her, confused. "Sophia, That conversation was about how to defend you from the magazine article. I was planning to make a public statement supporting you. I know, Sophia whispered. My mom explained everything to me yesterday. Mark moved closer until he was inches from me from her. Sophia, these 3 months have been hell. I haven't been able to sleep. I haven't been able to work. I haven't been able to breathe without you. Me too, she admitted. Robert came back, and for a moment I thought it would be easier to be with someone from my world. But I couldn't, because I don't love him like I love you. Mark felt his heart pound in his chest. You love me? I love you so much it hurts, Mark. That's why it was so hard to walk away, because I knew if I stayed, I could never protect myself from feeling so much. Mark took her in his arms, not caring that he was covered in cement. Never again, he murmured against her hair. Never again will we be separated by misunderstandings or by fear. They kissed in the middle of the construction site, with the sound of machines in the background and the smell of cement in the air. It was a kiss filled with all the pain of the last 3 months, all the hope for the future, and all the certainty that they had found something worth fighting for. The workers, who had been discreetly observing from a distance, began to applaud and whistle. When they finally separated, Mark took Sophia's dirty hands in his. Sophia Miller, will you build this dream with me? Not just the houses, but a whole life together. Yes, she replied, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, I want to build everything with you. 6 months after their reconciliation, Mark and Sophia's lives had completely changed. The social housing project had grown into a thriving community of 50 homes, with the first families already settled in. Sophia had left the small studio where she worked and had opened her own company, Miller Social Architecture, specializing in affordable housing projects. Mark had invested not only in the original project, but also in making Sophia's professional dreams come true. Are you nervous? Mark asked one Saturday morning, as Sophia got ready in front of the mirror. Why would I be nervous? She replied, but her trembling hands betrayed her. It was the official inauguration day of the project's first phase. They had invited the beneficiary families, the media, and local authorities. Mark's parents would also be there. In recent months, Frederick and Patricia Anderson had had to change their opinion of Sophia. Seeing their son work with his hands, seeing the passion he had regained for his work, and especially seeing the positive results of the project, had made them reconsider their prejudices. My parents have changed a lot, Mark said, hugging her from behind. My mom asked me yesterday if you had already chosen the dress for the ceremony. Really? Sophia smiled. 6 months ago, she saw me as a gold digger. 6 months ago, they didn't know you. Now they know who you really are. They arrived at the transformed construction site. What was once a vacant lot was now a vibrant community. The houses designed by Sophia were small but functional, with front gardens and community spaces where children were already playing. Eleanor was standing at the main entrance, radiant with health and pride, directing the volunteers who helped with the organization. Her complete recovery had been one of the best gifts of this whole process. Honey, Eleanor shouted when she saw Sophia arrive. The families are so excited. Mrs. Rodriguez can't stop crying with happiness. Mark observed the scene with satisfaction. Seeing the families in their new homes, seeing Eleanor recovered, seeing Sophia shining with her own light, it was all worth it. Mark! A familiar voice made him turn. It was Liam, accompanied by David. Brother, you have to see this, David said, showing him his phone. The front page article in the newspaper. The headline read, "The Love That Transformed a Community. How a Love Story Became Hope for 200 Families." 200 families? Mark asked, confused. Didn't you hear? Liam smiled. 3 more companies want to replicate your model. You already have funds to expand the project to 4 more communities. Mark felt his heart swell with pride, not for the recognition, but because Sophia's dream was multiplying. The ceremony began with the families telling their stories. One by one, they spoke of what it meant to have their own home, a safe place for their children, a community where they could support each other. When it was Mark's turn to speak, he approached the microphone with Sophia by his side. "A year ago, I was a successful man, but empty. I had money, I had a prosperous company, but I had no purpose." He began, looking directly at Sophia. "Then I met an extraordinary woman who taught me that true success is not measured in bank accounts, but in transformed lives." Applause interrupted his speech. "This project exists because Sophia Miller dreamed of a world where all families could have a dignified home. I only had the privilege of helping her build that dream." Mark took Sophia's hand. "And today, I want to ask her to build one more dream with me." Mark knelt in front of Sophia, taking a small box from his pocket. But instead of a traditional ring, there was a golden key. "Sophia Miller, this is the key to the first house of our project, but I also want it to be the key to our future. Will you marry me?" Sophia covered her mouth with her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. Around them, the families, the workers, the guests, everyone was crying and applauding. "Yes!" Sophia shouted. "Yes, yes, yes!" Mark stood up and kissed her as the crowd erupted in celebration. Eleanor was crying with happiness, hugged by Patricia Anderson, who also had tears in her eyes. "Welcome to the family, honey," Patricia whispered to Sophia as she hugged her. "Forgive me for being so blind at first." "It doesn't matter anymore," Sophia replied. "What matters is the future." Frederick Anderson approached his son with a genuine smile. "I'm proud of you, Mark, not just for what you've built here, but for the man you've become." The celebration continued into the night. The families opened the doors of their new homes so everyone could see the interiors. Mark and Sophia walked from house to house, seeing their designs transformed into real homes, full of life and hope. In the last house they visited, Mrs. Rodriguez, an elderly woman who had raised her 5 grandchildren alone, stopped them at the door. "Young people, you don't know what you've done for us. For the first time in my life, my grandchildren have their own bedroom. For the first time, I'm not afraid of being evicted." "Mrs. Rodriguez," Sophia said, taking her hands, "you deserve this and much more." "Everyone deserves it," Mark added, "and this is just the beginning." When they were finally alone, Mark and Sophia went up to the rooftop of the community's administrative building. From there, they could see the entire illuminated community, with the lights of the houses creating a beautiful pattern in the darkness. "Do you remember our first night on the office rooftop?" Mark asked, hugging her from behind. "How could I forget it? That's where I completely fell in love with you. I was already in love from the first night at the restaurant, when you told me you wanted to design houses for families who couldn't afford decent housing." Sophia turned in his arms. "Do you know what's the most incredible thing about all this?" "What?" "That it started with a lie. I wasn't your blind date, but I ended up being the woman of your life." Mark laughed. "And I thought I was going to have the worst date of my life, but instead I found my soulmate." "Do you believe in destiny?" Sophia asked. "Now I do," Mark replied, kissing her forehead. "I believe the universe has mysterious ways of bringing together people who are meant to be together, even if one of them is a waitress pretending to be a blind date. Especially then." Mark kissed her gently, because only an extraordinary woman would have had the compassion to play along with a lonely man in a restaurant. They stayed on the rooftop until very late, planning their wedding, dreaming of the next projects, imagining the future they would build together. In the distance, the city of Metropolis shone with millions of lights, but none shone brighter than the hope they had ignited in this small community. "I love you, Sophia Miller," Mark murmured. "And I love you, Mark Anderson, my favorite millionaire." "Your favorite millionaire?" Mark laughed. "Do you know many?" "Only one, and it turns out he has a bigger heart than his bank account." That night, as they drove home, both knew they had found something more valuable than any fortune. They had found true love, shared purpose, and the certainty that together they could change the world. One house, one family, one dream at a time. A year had passed since that magical night on the rooftop when Mark proposed to Sophia. 12 months filled with construction, love, and transformations that neither of them had imagined possible. Mark adjusted his tie in front of the mirror of the same azure sky restaurant where everything had begun. But now it was completely different. He and Sophia had bought it and transformed it into New Sky, a social restaurant that employed low-income university students, offering them flexible hours and study scholarships. "Nervous, brother?" Liam asked, arranging the flowers on the tables. "About celebrating my first wedding anniversary?" Mark smiled. "Not at all. I'm excited." David came running from the kitchen. "The quesadillas are ready. Eleanor says they're the best she's ever made." Eleanor had taken on the role of head chef at the restaurant after her full recovery. Her energy and joy were contagious to all the staff, and she had become the unofficial grandmother to all the students working there. "Where's my favorite daughter-in-law?" Eleanor asked, coming out of the kitchen with an apron full of flour. "She's on her way. She had a late meeting with the investors of the Metropolis project." Sophia's architecture studio had grown exponentially. Miller Social Architecture now had contracts in 5 different cities, all based on the original model she had developed with Mark. Sophia had a team of 12 architects working under her direction, all committed to the same vision of dignified and accessible housing. The restaurant door opened, and Sophia entered, radiant in a blue dress that accentuated her 6-month pregnancy. Sorry, she cried, kissing Mark. The investors wouldn't stop asking questions about the project. "Good news?" Eleanor asked, hugging daughter. "The best. They approved the construction of 300 more houses in Metropolis, and they want us to expand the model to Star City, too." Mark felt pride swell in his chest. Seeing Sophia lead her own company, heading social impact projects, was more satisfying than any success he had had at Innovate Tech. "And that's not all," Sophia continued, her eyes sparkling. "I received a call from the government of New Columbia. They want me to present the model in Capital City." "New Columbia!" Eleanor exclaimed. "Honey, you're going to change the whole world." "We're going to change the world," Sophia corrected, taking Mark's hand. "This is our project." The anniversary celebration began in the same place where they had met. Guests included families from the housing community, employees from both companies, and, of course, close friends and family. Frederick and Patricia Anderson had arrived early to help with the preparations. The transformation of Mark's parents had been one of the most pleasant surprises of the year. Patricia was now part of the housing project's board of directors, contributing her social contacts to secure more funds and support. "Sophia, honey," Patricia said, arranging the napkins. "Have you decided on names for the baby yet?" "We're thinking of Isabella," Sophia replied, caressing her belly. "Isabella Eleanor Anderson Miller, after my grandmother," Mark added, "and after the grandmother who's going to be a great-grandmother." Eleanor put her hands to her heart, emotional. "A great-granddaughter. Oh my goodness, I can't handle so much happiness." Robert appeared at the restaurant door, hesitantly. Sophia had invited him as a way to completely close that chapter of her life. Robert was now married to an elementary school teacher and was expecting his first child. "Sophia," Robert said, approaching shyly. "Thanks for inviting me." "Thanks for coming, Robert. I want you to meet my husband." Mark approached with a genuine smile and extended his hand. "Robert, right? Sophia has told me a lot about you." "Only good things, I hope," Robert joked, shaking his hand. "Of course, you're part of her history, and I respect all her history." Robert looked at Sophia, who shone with happiness next to Mark, and knew he had made the right decision by letting her go. "You two look very happy together," Robert said sincerely. "I'm so glad." The night continued with stories, laughter, and plans for the future. Mark stood up to make a toast. "Exactly 2 years ago, I was a rich man, but poor in everything that truly matters. My friends dragged me to a blind date that changed my life forever." He looked at Liam and David. "Though, technically, Sophia wasn't my date." Everyone laughed. "I met a woman who taught me that true success is not measured in profits, but in transformed lives. That true love knows no social classes, and that when two people are meant to be together, the universe finds a way to unite them." Sophia stood up with difficulty, and Mark helped her. 2 years ago, I was a broken woman, working 2 jobs to survive, with all my professional dreams on hold. I met a man who not only gave me back my dreams, but helped me make them bigger than I ever imagined. They held hands. Today, 1 year after marrying, we have a community of 200 houses, 5 projects in development, a restaurant that employs 50 students, and Sophia placed her hand on her belly. A baby on the way. "Cheers!" Eleanor shouted, raising her glass of hibiscus tea. Everyone toasted, and the celebration continued late into the night. When the last guests finally left, Mark, Sophia, and Eleanor were left alone, cleaning the tables. "Do you remember when Sophia came home crying after she was fired?" Eleanor asked, laughing. "I thought it was the end of the world," Sophia admitted. "And I thought it was the worst day of my life," Mark added. "Turns out it was the best." They finished cleaning and left the restaurant. The small shopping center where New Sky was located now also housed a social pharmacy, a daycare for employees, and a small free medical clinic, all part of the community support ecosystem that Mark and Sophia had created. "Shall we go home?" Mark asked, opening the car door. Home was now one of the houses from the original project, the first one that had been completed. Mark had sold his penthouse in the Heights and had chosen to live in the community they had built. It was smaller than his old house, but it was full of life, love, and purpose. They arrived at their house and sat on the small terrace overlooking the community park. Despite it being midnight, they could hear the faint sounds of some neighbors still celebrating the anniversary in the central garden. "Do you know what I like most about living here?" Sophia asked, leaning on Mark's shoulder. "What?" "That Isabella will grow up in a true community. She'll have adoptive grandparents, aunts and uncles who aren't blood relatives, but who will love her like family. And she'll grow up knowing she can change the world if she sets her mind to it," Mark added, "because she'll see her parents' example every day." Sophia felt a kick in her belly. "I think Isabella agrees." Mark placed his hand on her belly and felt his daughter's movement. "Hello, Princess. Dad and Mom are eagerly waiting for you." They stayed there in silence, listening to the sounds of their community, the murmur of distant conversations, the laughter of children playing late, the sound of soft music coming from an open window. "Mark," Sophia said softly, "do you ever imagine what it would have been like if your friends hadn't dragged you to that date? Every day I'm grateful they did, but you know what I really think?" "What?" "That somehow destiny would have brought us together anyway." "Why?" "Because when two people are meant to be together, when they are meant to create something beautiful in the world, the universe always finds a way." Sophia smiled and snuggled closer to him. "I like that theory." "Besides," Mark laughed, "knowing your stubborn character and my obsession with helping others, we probably would have ended up fighting over the same social project, and we would have fallen in love in the middle of the argument." "Definitely," Sophia laughed. "It would have been love at first argument, instead of love at first." They stayed awake until dawn, talking about their plans, the new Columbia project, Isabella's arrival, the restaurant's expansion, the dreams that kept growing every day. When the sun began to rise, painting the sky pink and gold, Mark and Sophia realized that they were living exactly the life they had dreamed of. It wasn't perfect, There were still challenges and obstacles, but it was theirs. They had built it together, brick by brick, dream by dream, kiss by kiss. "I love you, Sophia Anderson," Mark murmured, kissing her hair. "And I love you, Mark Anderson, my favorite millionaire, who turned out to be much more than a millionaire." "What am I then?" "You're my home," Sophia replied. "My partner, my accomplice, the father of my daughter, the man who helped me build all my dreams and then dreamed even bigger dreams with me." In the distance, the lights of Metropolis began to fade with the arrival of the new day. But in their small community, a new way of life was flourishing. One where love had triumphed over class differences, where dreams were built with hard work and dedication, and where two people had shown that when love is true, it can transform not only two lives, but an entire community. Isabella kicked again, as if to remind them that the future was already on its way, full of infinite possibilities and new dreams to build. And in that perfect moment, with the sunrise painting the sky and their community waking up to a new day, Mark and Sophia knew that their love story was just beginning. Because true love has no end. It only transforms and grows, creating new stories, new hopes, and new worlds where others can find their own happily ever after. What an incredible journey for Mark and Sophia. Did you expect their love story to unfold this way? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more heartwarming stories.